say what you're going to do in the primary bill?
No, rarely do, and remember that support in the Senate was not overwhelming when it passed there last year, so I think we ought to let them take a look at it and decide how to respond. But I've made my position pretty clear. I think it's a step in the wrong direction for a number of reasons.
But how strongly do you feel that? Does it rise to the point of...
Am I very explicitly and
well, that's, I'm trying to get a sense of, is this a place where you draw the line and say, this shouldn't happen?
I'm not prepared to make that decision, Bob. I made it clear how I feel. I think it's interesting that of the 11 states that have September primaries, there are only 2 that are showing any interest at all in moving them. Minnesota and Vermont. The others say they don't plan to make any changes. All this talk about supporting our troops and following the federal law doesn't seem to be an urgent matter in 9 other states, and I don't think it needs to be here. This is the 21st century. I've been to Afghanistan. I can tell you that the mail service to Bora Bora isn't too expeditious. And I think we ought to be using electronic voting, which is technologically possible. It's available. It's the wave of the future. We're sure that there can be password-protected files that are transmitted with individual votes, but soldiers and other members of the armed forces have made it very clear publicly that they're willing to waive their confidentiality in order to have the votes counted. So that's not a matter of great concern either.
Are you talking about electronic transmission of ballots or electronic voting? In other words, emailing ballots or filling out an electronic form?
It could be either. In fact, there are some technologies that are used now that are electronic, but not absentees. In other words, screens on which people touch areas to cast their votes. Those are available domestically now. So there are different options.
Have any of those been inspected and judged adequate by the federal elections folks?
I don't have. Well, the Secretary of State in each state has a responsibility for determining the appropriateness of equipment that's used in voting. But I'm sure the Federal Voting Assistance Program would want to be involved in that. But I don't know if they
what do you say to those folks who say our troops are going to be scattered in villages in Afghanistan and they may not have the electronic capability that you're suggesting?
Well, I can tell you that cell service is pretty good in Afghanistan. I expect other telecommunications infrastructure is as well. I think the military does everything it can to make sure that they have telecommunications capabilities for reasons other than voting in remote combat theaters. I think it's more reliable than mail.
But isn't the problem on this end? I mean, they may all have email connections. Is that true of all towns? Are they all ready to receive these things?
I don't know the answer to that, Nancy, but there are other options too, such as what happened in the New York congressional election last year, counting the ballots late. We did it once in Vermont when there was a special election back when I was Secretary of State. There are alternatives. There are options that are available by waiver through the federal law, and I don't think we've explored them all. Legislators just immediately jumped to moving the primary into a time in the summer when folks are still on vacation and going to the fairs and having a good time and not focused on elections. So I think these alternatives should have been explored more carefully before making this change.